This is our 5th time.
I wouldn't have dreamt of what I learned here.
This encourages you and inspires you.
And it's so relaxing and the food is great.
I love Retreat at Sea, and I will do it again.
And you should be here.
Holy Trinity is at work full time here.
The Syro-Malabar priests who are defying Pope Francis' ultimatum to face the altar during Mass or risk excommunication are now upsetting traditionalists by introducing explicitly Hindu elements into the ancient Mass. Join us with the latest from the Eternal City, Church Militant's Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomes. Jules, the Syro-Malabar rite dispute is basically about the priests facing the people or facing the altar. Dissident priests are refusing to accept a compromise formula which requires them to face the people for the liturgy of the Word and then face the altar for the liturgy of the Eucharist. But now incorporating Hindu elements into the Mass, this is giving this whole saga a completely new twist. What and where is this going on?
Brad, remember last week we reported that 400 priests with thousands of laity had gathered in Ernakulam at the Bharat Mata College grounds to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Syro-Malabar Church's headquarters being located in Ernakulam. And we also talked about how at that particular Mass, in an act of mass defiance, sorry for the pun, the entire cohort of priests, over 400, faced the people throughout the liturgy. In fact, the organizers themselves said that this was the largest in history. This was the largest gathering of priests unitedly facing the people. But guess what? Traditionalists are now very upset. Traditionalists from the same church, from the same rite, are very upset because they're saying, hey, these guys are not only defying the Pope's directive, you know, we are willing to accept the compromise formula, but they are introducing, they have indeed introduced explicitly Hindu elements into the liturgy, and that is very clearly demonstrated in this Mass that was held last Sunday.
So these are very serious accusations, Jules. Do the traditionalists from the same rite have evidence to back up these allegations?
Well, the evidence is staring in your face, Brad. There's a whole video of the entire event, 6 hours long, and the first explicitly Hindu element is at the start of the service. At the beginning of the service, there is a hymn sung. The priests process in a very long procession, and then you know, there is an introduction by a priest, and then immediately, apparently we can't see it, but there seems to be a lamp lit. That is what soldiers on the ground have told me. But we have the recording of a Hindu mantra from the Upanishads, and the ancient corpus of the Hindu scriptures being sung right at the beginning of the Holy Eucharist. Listen to this.
That's quite a production, Jules. I'm sorry I don't speak Malayalam. Could you interpret that for us?
Well, actually, it's in Sanskrit, the language, the sacred language of Hinduism. It says, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From falsehood, lead me to the truth, from darkness to the light, from death to immortality. And then there is that great Hindu Maha Mantra, the sound Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, peace, 3 times. Now this is the Pavana mantra from the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad that is used traditionally was used to introduce the Soma sacrifice. Soma is a hallucinogenic drink that was offered as a libation to the gods, and if you drink this thing, you would get intoxicated, and presumably it would lead you out from darkness into light, from unreality into reality. But this is so explicitly Hindu, and we will talk a little later why traditionalists are hugely offended by this.
So is this the only Hindu element that the traditionalists are objecting to, or is there more Hindu elements that are objecting to?
Well, at least another very explicit Hindu ritual that has been performed, that was performed during this Mass, during the Holy Kurbana, was performed, at the high point, the climactic moment of the doxology, where the priest elevates the consecrated host and the consecrated chalice. Now, we will watch that clip, and you will see as he does this, children come and perform the Hindu ritual of the Arati, which is, again, explicitly Hindu. I've spoken to theologians in India. They tell me this. And the Arati consists of plates that have camphor flames, flowers, and incense sticks, and they are rotated clockwise. The symbolism is that all the 5 Hindu elements that make up the cosmos in Hindu theology, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, are contained in that plate, in that thali. It's also popularly used to welcome guests, to ward off the evil eye, but Muslims don't use it, Christians don't use it, normally. And so it's very interesting that this has now been incorporated explicitly into not just the Latin Rite liturgy. There are cases of it being used in experimental Indian Rite masses, but here this has been introduced in the East Syriac Rite of the Mass.
Wow, Jules, that would put the what we have in America, the LA Rec, is where they have all the experimental liturgy going on and liturgical dancing and everything under the sun out in California. This kind of puts that to shame, though, I have to say.
Brad, let me here, by the way, the hymn, I don't want to call it that, the chant, if you want to call it that, is in Malayalam. And what these children are basically singing, it's taken from a popular Hindu tune, Hindu song, and they're saying, we bow before you, our leader, by doing arati and offering light, incense, and flowers. So again, very, very explicitly Hindu. The word for leader, Nayaka, can also be interpreted as a lord. But what I know from the ground there, it's not only traditionalists who are upset, Brad, but also Hindus who are hitting out at Christians and accusing them, or Catholics, not Christians, because it's the Catholics who are doing this, and accusing them of cultural appropriation. They're saying, well, you are misusing our rituals, because these rituals are very sacred. They are meant, for example, the arati that was just performed is meant to be performed before a Hindu idol, a Hindu deity, god or a goddess, and you're taking it and using it, dislocating it from its original context and embedding it in your own Christian mass.
So you got enculturation versus, cultural appropriation or misappropriation. So in fair and balanced reporting, Jules, what would the Syro-Malabar priests who are performing these Hindu rituals say in their own defense?
Well, they would say that they are enculturating. They, of course, will not say that they are enculturating as a vehicle of evangelization, because most of them on the liberal side simply don't believe in evangelization. And since Nostra Aetate, Vatican II, and Lumen Gentium, that they basically said that, well, evangelization is making a Hindu a better Hindu. That is one. They would also accuse, I know the Latin Rite priests do this, they say that, the Latin Mass is so Western, it's so Roman, it's so Latin. However, the Syro-Malabar priests have no excuse, because this is the East Syriac rite is indigenous to them. And therefore, nobody's forcing them to Latinize or Romanize or Westernize anything. And for that matter, Christianity is an Asian religion, not a Western religion. They would also say that some of these elements, like the arati, were permitted by the Vatican in 1969 for use at so-called Indian Rite masses. They were given 12 different, permissions for 12 different forms of adaptation. But then their opponents would say that this is not an Indian Rite Mass. This is a Syro-Malabar Rite Mass.
So then let's move to the Vatican. How has or does the Vatican respond to this type of enculturation within the Syriac liturgy?
Well, there is a document, a booklet, which contains all the Roman documents that have spoken, that have addressed various controversies. There you can see the cover of that on the Syro-Malabar Rite. And it has pushed back, in the 1980s, for example, one of the documents, which I'm going to read from, on these forms of Hinduizations in the liturgy. So let me read one portion. We talked about the use of Om, Om Shanti, 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 and some Indian theologians have compared it to the Logos of St. John's Gospel. But what the Vatican says, he says the Om, according to what innumerable passages of the Upanishads, that's the Hindu scriptures, continually and repeatedly affirm, is the synthesis of all the Vedas, again, the corpus of Hindu scriptures, and of all the gnosis of Hinduism. Gnosis, like as in Gnostics, notwithstanding the attempts made in various quarters to offer an accommodated Christian interpretation, it remains so strongly qualified in a Hindu sense, it's charged with meanings so unmistakably Hindu, that it simply cannot be used in Christian worship. Om is not a revealed name of God, the Vatican documents assert. And then, of course, we look at the Pavamana mantra that was chanted, and this is what it says on that mantra. It says, it must also be noted that in the original context, well known to all of the Upanishads, from which the prayer in question is taken, that is, the unreal, the darkness and death are nothing but the phenomenonic word in which we are immersed as long as we are drawn along in the cycle of rebirths, and from which we are liberated by knowledge of its merely apparent existence and our identity with the Brahman, that is the principle. Now, Brad, let me say this very quickly. It's fundamental for our viewers to understand that Hindu theology is diametrically opposed to Christian theology. And what the Upanishads are summing up is Hindu theology, wherein there is no tangible reality. We are all living in an illusion, and that illusion is Maya. And salvation, lead me out from darkness to light, truth, falsehood to truth, death to immortality. Basically what the Upanishad is saying, help me to understand that I am not really Jules. This is not really my body. What you and I are doing, Brad, is an illusion. And the moment I recognize that and repent of my avidya, my ignorance, I merge with that eternal spirit, that eternal principle, more accurately called Brahman, and I achieve moksha or salvation. So you can see how fundamentally different this is from, classical biblical Christianity. Yeah,
the one thing that Christ did, the incarnation, he really elevated matter. He concretized matter. He took on matter. And so his creation that he created, he's actually, embracing. In the incarnation, he took all of that up to himself. So that's really just completely diametrically opposed, where they would say all of that creation really doesn't exist. And here, God did create all of this for our theater in which we can work out our salvation. Switching off for this for a minute, Jules, where are we at with regard to the dispute about facing the altar or facing the people? They have to still demonstrate their obedience by Christmas Day, right? The liberal priests are actually now enculturating the people with all these Hindu elements.
Brad, the Archbishop Cyril Vassal, Pope Francis's delegate, is currently in Ernakulam holding discussions, and he's there to enforce Pope Francis's wishes. I have heard again from sources on the ground that it's not so much about, getting the priests to face the people half the time and the altar half the time, because my sources tell me that Pope Francis really doesn't want the priests to face the altar at all, because he believes in, modern liturgy where the entire service should be priest facing people. But the reason why he's taking this so seriously has to do with obedience. If these priests succeed in their disobedience and get away with it, Pope Francis is afraid, my sources say, that the rebellion will spread to the traditional Latin Mass camps. And they will say, well, if you are wrapping these, if you're letting these guys do what they want to liturgically, why can't we do the same? So it's the fear of rebellion and the mutiny spreading that is really causing Pope Francis to crack, bring down the sledgehammer on this small church, sui juris church in ancient India, in Kerala, in India.
That's amazing. The same clerics who are rebelling against papal authority and refuse to face liturgical East, which would symbolize Christ, are the same priests who are including anti-Christian symbols at Mass. Seems like there's a pattern of rejecting Christ here. Please pray for these priests that they stop misleading the faithful into schism or into idolatry, whichever the case may be. And Jules, thank you so much for staying on top of all this, and as the story grows ever darker.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks again for watching today's episode of Rome Dispatch. This show is brought to you by donors like Real Estate for Life. If you're looking to buy or sell a home and want to support our mission, visit realestateforlife.org. Again, that's realestateforlife.org. Be sure to tell them Church Militant sent you. God bless.